Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Jamison. I'm director of PERC, and it's really kind of sad to have to do everything virtually these days. My colleagues and I at PERC have really missed our personal interactions with you and the things that we've done together. Hopefully, we'll get back to that real soon. But for right now, we'll do things as virtually as we can. So let me share my screen with you, and we'll talk about this particular topic, which is how do we think about and work on a convergence plan, a direction for the future in telecommunications so that we can get the broadband that we want. So let me just walk through that with you for a moment. So let me start with this poll. Now we can't actually take a poll because I'm recording this in advance, so just make a note to yourself. Which do you think is the most disruptive technology of the past 40 years? Has it been the iPhone? Has it been blockchain, the World Wide Web, Google's PageRank? Think about it for a minute. I'd ask you to talk to your neighbor, but you can't do that either. So just make a note to yourself. Now I'll give you my answer, and maybe we can debate this at some time. But I think of it as the iPhone. So this is some research that a colleague and I have done just this year, looking at what the impact of the iPhone has been on mobile broadband. By our estimation, 1.8 billion people in the world have mobile broadband because of the iPhone. It's made a difference of like 25% in the growth rate of mobile broadband. That's a lot of lives impacted, and impacted in many different ways. So to get us into that, let me take another poll again. Just jot down your answer. Who benefits most from the iPhone? Steve Jobs, of course he's passed away, so maybe then Apple. Mark Zuckerberg, AT&T, consumers. Now think about who's benefited the most, and I'll give you my answer. I think it's the consumers. How do we know? Well, a Nobel laureate in economics, William Nordhaus, actually estimated recently that if you look at innovators, and a lot of them get very wealthy, they only capture about 2.2% of the value that they create. So Steve Jobs, when he passed away, net worth about $10 billion. Mark Zuckerberg, and have no doubt about it, Facebook is much bigger because of the iPhone than it would have been otherwise. That ability to carry around Facebook and take pictures, that's been immensely valuable to Mr. Zuckerberg. $100 billion in net worth. What's the consumer benefit then? About $5 trillion. And that's probably a low estimate because I leave off Amazon, I leave off Google, I leave off all of those things. That's a lot of value created from the iPhone making broadband even more valuable. So why do we even care about this? Well, we all know that broadband's important, right? We don't have to worry about defending that. The COVID has shown that clearly, and it's actually made it even more important. We know the public internet is disappearing. Now, that might sound like news to you, so I'll defend that. I'll also talk about how the ISP business model is constricted, has been constricted by the way the internet has been organized in the past, and how I think that can change. And then get to the question of how do we then pay for broadband? Let me talk about the public internet and why I argue, and a lot of people agree with me, that it's disappearing. And it's because so much private internet is being built. Large content providers and a whole lot of other people as well. Let me just show you how this looks. This is Google's edge nodes. This is where Google connects to the internet. All of these nodes are connected together with Google's private internet. Public internet connects to the node. The nodes are interconnected by private internet. That's a lot. In fact, the Caribbean doesn't even show up because it's covered up with all the nodes. Just think of how many nodes that means are in your own area. Similarly for Facebook, now you can see the Caribbean, but that's a lot of nodes, and they're interconnected by Netflix's content delivery network that is patched together from leasing space on other networks. Look at Facebook's content delivery network nodes. Lots of them. Again, all of these are connected by Facebook's content delivery network. Now, why do these companies build these private internets? They don't carry other people's internet traffic over, it's just theirs. They do it because they want customization. Google wants a network that delivers YouTube at unmatched quality, that takes care of search, stores search results in the right times and the right places so that it can deliver those search results in a matter of a fraction of a second. And all the things it does with advertising. Similarly with Facebook. Facebook, with all the instant messaging it has to manage, the videos it has to manage, all the calculations for advertising that it has to manage, much better done over a private internet than over a public internet. And that's why these companies are doing this. The public internet doesn't serve their needs. And so they build their own. Here's just a little bit more demonstration of that. Undersea cable. 95% of all internet traffic that goes from country to country goes through undersea cable. 700,000 miles of it altogether. About 20% of that is owned by these edge providers. Google's got about 10%, Facebook's about 8%, et cetera. You add them up, I don't even have some of the others on there. They've got about 20% of that. If I added more, it would get even larger. They provide, or they own, a lot of cabling, and for good reason. Again, they want it to be customized for their needs. What that means is that over the past couple of decades, we've seen a transformation in telco business models that have really constrained and constricted the things that they can do. You're all familiar with the old voice system for making money. The revenue largely came from retail users and from the rest of the world paying to reach those retail users. Now, I don't know what the numbers look like in your particular countries because it varied greatly from country to country. But in the US, the telcos in the US paid out about $5.9 billion to the rest of the world, clear back in 1991. By 2014, that had been cut to less than half. And it's getting smaller and smaller as we go along. In fact, in a recent paper, I estimated that by 2025, just 4 years from now, we probably won't have public telephone service in the US anymore. It'll be gone. Everything will be about broadband. And that's the business model that you see below, where the user, the retail consumer is paying for network access, but the network is just kind of this bland highway that carries whatever somebody puts on it. All the value, all the cool stuff is out there on the edge in the content. And that's where the advertisers are paying. Most of that's coming from advertiser money. Now, there are some other sources of revenue as well, but it's landing in the pockets, if you will, of the edge providers. And we can look at what the consequences of that are. Now, this is a graph I drew just for the US. I don't know what this might look like in your country. But what this shows is, again, starting back with the development of the iPhone. 2007 is when it's introduced, late 2007. So the graph starts 2008. Takes it for the next 11 years. It takes us up to 2018. The bottom part of the graph shows, well, all the graph shows what we call net resources. It's kind of like net debt. If you're an accountant, you're familiar with that. It says, well, how much cash equivalents do you have on hand? And we subtract from that the amount of debt that you have. So a capital intensive thing like a network typically has more debt than cash on hand. And when the iPhone starts out, that's about 100 million, more debt than cash on hand. By the time we get to 2018, that has changed about 200%, now to more than 300 billion, more debt than cash or cash equivalents on hand. So where's the money gone? Well, now, before I go to that though, let me say, none of these companies are in bad financial shape. This is AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, and T-Mobile. Now Sprint and T-Mobile have merged together. They're all doing fine financially, but to pay for the expansion of the network, to accommodate everything that's been going on, they've gone fairly heavily into debt. But it's worked fine for them. They're still doing fine. And maybe companies in your situation are doing fine as well. I don't know without looking at their finances. But we can still ask the question of where's the money been captured? And you can see that up on the top of this graph. that we have two hardware providers. This is Apple and Intel. And you can see that their amount of net cash, net debt, has actually improved. And the four big edge providers, this is Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and Amazon. Their cash side has improved quite a bit over time as well. In fact, when you get to 2018, they've got about as much cash on hand, minus whatever debt they have, as the big four telecom companies have gone into debt. So that's where the value's been captured. No problems with these companies that have done great things on the internet. They deserve all the value that their piece of all the value they've created. It's just that if we really want to have the incentives for the networks to become what they can become, this will need to change somehow. And I think that it's about to. What I think is going to change for us is fifth generation wireless. Now, you've all heard of 5G. You all know the stories about it. The thing that I think changes the future for us is this thing called network slicing. What it allows is a customization of what networks can do. So it's no longer a highway that everybody tries to drive on. Now it is customized. So think of what this means. If you're trying to compete with the Facebook, or you're trying to compete with the Google, or maybe just adding value to them, now the things that they've been able to do in their private piece of the internet, you can now do on a 5G network. It can be designed for machine-to-machine learning, for entertainment, for retail shopping, for whatever kinds of applications there might be. This can now be customized and add great value. So what does this mean? Fewer physically private internets. Probably not tremendous change in that, but the impetus is going to be a lot less. A lot more virtually private internets. Public internet will go ahead and effectively disappear. And so it'll be this network of all these customized functions, functionalities that people can use to build great new businesses. Efficient pricing, more price discrimination in order to be able to get that done. The difference between the edge and the core is going to disappear. So where we've had in the past, here are the edge providers, here's the network, it all becomes blurred. We get more Internet of Things, etc. You can read all of that. We'll make the slides available to you. So what this kind of means is, from my perspective, is that we have this 5G customization that really increases the value of the network. Now the network becomes intelligent. Now it gets to provide data that it did not provide before. It gets to have its own content. So think of it this way, who knows more about what people in Jamaica want on social media, want in video, want in whatever kinds of engagement they have on the internet than Jamaicans, or for Bahamas, the Bahamians, or for the Trinis, or whoever else it might be? Who knows more than you do? Now, Google has tremendous amounts of data and can really provide some amazing stuff. We know that because pretty much everybody uses Google. We know that Netflix provides great videos for people because a lot of people watch them. YouTube, Facebook, great value. But what if we added to that value, that knowledge that they can't capture because they're not they're not in your country? So this is where the networks can start adding value that other people cannot. That becomes then a potential source of revenue. And that is how we then can really pay for broadband. Because now we're creating value in a network with the new data, the new local knowledge, the customization that we could not before. It's a great business opportunity. It makes all the things that the big internet providers, big content providers do, makes it even more valuable. We just have to have the right business models and regulatory systems for that. So how do we then think about this regulatory design? Well, there are things that you still worry about. If you're concerned that there's market power in the internet access, if you will, the broadband, then there might still be a reason for having some sort of price protection for the people who might fall off the network if prices were to rise, or rise too much anyway. But that's limited because the network itself, the whole system itself, has to adapt and customize. And one interesting thing I've learned over the years is that if you look at the number of businesses that survive, that thrive, it's only about 10% of those that start up. So if you just translate that to ideas, most of our ideas on how this should work will be wrong. We're going to try a lot of things and fail at a lot of things until we figure out here's the right system that works well in Dominican Republic. Here's the one that really works well in Trinidad and Tobago. Here's the one that really works well in Turks and Caicos. Wherever you might be, this is the system that works well there. But we have to allow a lot of flexibility. So we want to make sure that we don't let go of the things that are most important, the things that actually cause regulation to rise up. We want to take care of those things, but at the same time, have all the incentives and all the motivations, all of the ideas that allow us to customize and get things done. This is just an extra slide on where we think that Internet of Things values could be created. Notice that the one at the top is utilities. You're kind of in that space too. So you can be involved in this from different sides of the marketplace. All right, so final poll. Which best characterizes regulation of a successful broadband network? Is it subsidies? If you talk to people in my country right now, that's what they're talking about. $100 billion they're talking about, trying to put into more broadband. Is it programs for the poor? We've done a lot of programs for the poor, and the research shows that it has not had much impact, but people are talking about doing more of it. Is it directed investment? We have a lot of people who are talking about what the government should become the network provider. We've had experience with that, and it hasn't gone so well for us in the past. Maybe trying it all again, it'll work this time. Personally, I think it's probably number 4, less is more. Because we need time to try different things. We need space to try different things to make sure that we have the right incentives, the right experiments, so that we can get this 5th generation networking to put greater value into the network and pay for the access that we want people to have. So thank you so much for allowing me to spend some time talking with you. I understand a question and answer period is coming up, and I look forward to doing that, and especially look forward to when the whole pandemic is somewhere in our rearview mirrors, that we at PERC get to work with you in person again. Thank you very much.